Hello, and welcome to another edition of Ask Excite. I'm Tim Bushnell with Expert Cytometry, and today's question comes from Christine, and she asks, what are your favorite controls for flow cytometry? Now, Christine, that's a great question. My answer is all of them. Let me expand upon that a little bit. So during the panel development phase, as I'm optimizing my panel, I'm going to use every control I can conceivably think of. So I'm going to have the fluorescence -1 controls in every channel. If I'm doing a stimulation experiment, I'm going to make sure I have unstimulated and stimulated samples. I'm going to look for reference controls. I'm hoping that during that process I will identify internal negative controls and ways to find them. I will not use an isotype control, but that's a separate story, and we've talked about that on our YouTube channel, and you can refer back to that. Each of the controls, the goal is to help me set the best location for my gates so I can identify my populations of interest. And during the assay development phase, I will use each control to determine if it helps me or not. If it does not help me, then when I go to the final production panel, I won't be using it. But you also have to think about what you need and what each control gives you. For example, an unstimulated control will help you understand the background binding in your sample, especially if your cells should not be expressing your target antigen when they're not stimulated. The FMO control can help you address issues of spectral spillover into your channel of interest. There are those cases where sensitivity is reduced. The internal negative controls are a great control because they're treated the same as your positive sample. They're in the same tube effectively, but they're a population that should not be expressing the target marker, and they can also help you identify a positive from negative gate. So those are my favorite controls, and again, during panel development, it's essential to use them, all of them, and figure out which ones are important. But once you go to production, you only use the ones that are absolutely necessary for you to find your population of interest, especially if you have a limiting number of cells. But in that case, you must use those controls that help you find that population, because otherwise, how do you set the gates properly? And that's really the bottom line about why we use our controls and how we use them. So thanks a lot for your question, Christine. And remember, if you have more questions, go to getflowtraining.com to get all your answers, or email us here at askexcite@expertcytometry.com. You can also hit us up with the hashtag AskExcite. So thanks for listening to another edition of Ask Excite. Until next time, be sure to stay right here to get the best practices in flow cytometry from your friends in Flow, Tim and Team Excite.